Analytics and Predictive Modeling Course Structure and Goals. So this video is going to address the following. What is predictive analytics and generative AI? What background do you need coming in? What skills and abilities are developed in this course? What topics and concepts do we cover? How are these topics and concepts covered? How are knowledge acquisition and skill development assessed in this course? And why are these the skills and concepts that you will need in order to be an applied data scientist? So data science is an interdisciplinary field devoted to the study of big data and its applications. An analytic is actionable information from such data. A predictive analytic is a probabilistic analytic. Big data is high volume, high velocity, high variety. Variety is the key. Very rich in structure, very complex information. Generative AI uses models of that variety to produce instances that could have been in the data itself originally. Highly complex, very high-level mathematical models. However, much of data science and artificial intelligence is based only on calculus and linear algebra. In this course, we'll limit ourselves to that which can be built from calculus and linear algebra, which is quite a lot. We'll briefly review prerequisites as we encounter them. So, background and expectations. I assume that you've completed a calculus sequence, assume you've encountered matrix algebra, and that you have a willingness to develop essential coding skills. Everything else will be developed in the course itself. The outcome will be that you will be capable of participating in the data sciences upon completion of the course. So we've addressed the first one, what is predictive analytics and generative AI, and what background do you need? Now, concepts and skills developed in this course. First off, you're going to learn to use a problem-solving based modeling approach. You're going to develop calculus for optimization and probability. You're going to develop Python and machine learning library coding skills by teaching you how to effectively use large language models. And we're going to develop data science-related linear algebra skills as well, especially modern linear algebra skills. So I'm your instructor, Dr. Jeff Nicely, pronounced Nicely. This is my email. This is where my office is. And here's some background on me. So PhD and master's from Vanderbilt, non-normal operator theory, which is also known as semi-classical methods, mathematician and neuroscientist and expert systems in artificial intelligence at ORNL, Oak Ridge National Lab, operations research consultant, data scientist consultant, including for multiple Fortune 500 companies and also for the Army, especially Army logistics, and that was operations research. None of these that I have said that are now in blue would exist if not for modern linear algebra. So course goals. First off, we want to explore how predictive models transform uncertainty in big data into knowledge. Notice uncertainty and knowledge are both types of information. Our second goal is to introduce many of the algorithms used for predictive modeling and generative AI. And thirdly, to develop the communication skills that are expected of professional data scientists. So, we're introducing the field of information theory. We're going to be doing algorithm development and coding. And very, very important, we're going to develop communication skills that are expected of professional data scientists. So a key component of this developing communication skills will be projects, internship-like client-driven problems. You'll be given data and a question. You'll inform a client to enable their decision. You'll have to communicate well. And often you'll have to learn some of the material on your own, often with the assistance of a large language model. As we will see in this course, a data scientist must have a very broad background with depth in key areas. And many data science applications are broader than your background. In fact, you'll be working as a team, and the background of any given team member will not be sufficient for the project itself. Which means that a data science must be able to solve problems jointly as a part of a diverse team of investigators, requiring interactive problem-solving skills. In other words, communication skills are huge. While using large language models as coding assistants, I'll introduce Python and share code with you, but you'll be directing your questions to a large language model. And you'll be developing large language model skills, prompt engineering, at least a little bit. And all of us in data science are doing the same thing. We all do this interactivity with large language models and other data scientists. In other words, coding assistance means we have to develop yet another communication skill. So here we have it. We have two goals, information theory and algorithm development, but hugely, we have to develop good communication skills. So there are the skills and abilities developed in the course. We're ready to talk about what we actually cover in the course. So the course structure, we're going to start with complexity and information. What is big data, modeling complexity, nearest neighbors, metrics, information, decision trees, ensemble methods. And then we'll have project 1. Part 2 will be algorithms as models, kernel methods, neural networks, deep learning, generative models, and then project 2. And there'll be one additional module after that called softmax and supermodels. And then our final exam. So we have these two parts to our course. The first module will introduce us to exploration and visualization. We'll extensively cover linear algebra in the first part. We'll also look at ideas like entropy and KL divergence and binary cross entropy and convexity. We'll see convolution starting in part 2, including transformers in the generative models. So for each of the 12 modules, you'll watch 4 to 7 videos. They're approximately 15 minutes each. Some are longer. I don't think any go over 20 minutes. Videos are in lieu of a textbook. Why? Well, some of the content in this course is less than a year old, and a lot of it is less than 5 years old. A textbook, on average, requires 8 years of development. So you'll also attend class and interact online for examples, review, discussion, whatever. You'll work through the associated Jupyter notebooks. There'll be a lot of these, and a lot of our interactivity will be with respect to these notebooks. If you want to, there'll be optional readings and exercises. These are review as needed. They are optional, so you don't have to do them. And then there'll also be some additional support materials on the course website. So the videos and notebooks. There'll be one video sequence for the entire course is sort of the main instructional component of the course. There'll also be a generative AI video sequence, which is separate from the one above, but it will also last the entire course. And there'll be other shorter sequences of videos, a sequence on problem solving and model building, a sequence on developing probability theory essentials. The notebooks are primarily examples, some with and some without instruction. Some of these notebooks have extensive explanations of an application or an example. But some of the notebooks are just the code that you need for the actual implementation. So here's our course schedule, the first part you can see down through ensemble methods. These are topics for which a data scientist should have depth, not exhaustive, but very important. Modules will start on Wednesdays until fall break. We'll have our project 1 due immediately after fall break. The second part will be after fall break, and the modules will start on Mondays. and project 2 will be due before Thanksgiving. And then you'll get the final exam when you come back from Thanksgiving. So assessment in the course, anywhere from 7 to 10 weekly assignments, online quizzes, Jupyter notebooks. Most are short, some are time-consuming, some conceptual, some computational. Eventually, you have to get 80% or higher on all these weekly assignments and can get no higher than 80% after the due date. 1 week to complete the projects once I have announced that they are due. We'll be working on them pretty much continuously, but once I say they're due, you have a week. The last week will be review of what we've done in service to the final exam as you work on the final exam. The final exam actually has a project-like format that facilitates its suitability for a resume or its discussion in a job interview. So the goal here is we won't have one huge overarching class project for each of you, but the final exam will be an ensemble of projects that you can use to demonstrate your data science abilities. So this course has been carefully designed so that you can begin with no background, except you do have to know calculus and linear algebra. And yet, by the end of this course, you'll be equipped for employment or graduate school in the field. And most importantly, you'll be ready for one of our internships. So, we've done the topics and how they're covered and assessment. So why these skills? Why is the emphasis on what I've described so far? Well, data scientists use statistics, but quite often they are not statisticians. Data scientists use computers, but they're not always computer scientists. Data scientists use mathematics, but they're not necessarily mathematicians. When you're working with large, complex data, then a data scientist must have a broad background that is deep in key areas. So, you have to have highly developed communication skills because you're going to have to explain results and how you obtain them to multiple stakeholders who will have many, many questions. And they expect not just an answer, but a detailed story, which is going to inform their decision making. This is often called strategic thinking. So it requires a profound understanding of calculus, linear algebra, basic statistics, and basic coding techniques. See, common sense can fail to explain complex data. And a lot of people get in trouble because they take, quote, common sense approaches. The models are built using calculus and linear algebra, not common sense. Requires the ability to use abstract mathematics both conceptually and concretely. See, the numbers in the data may not express the information important in the data. Data is more than numbers. Just like this text has a shape that indicates there are more words to come, not from the words themselves, but simply from the shape of the words. We have to tell a machine what to do with a very large set of data. And we have to assess the quality and utility of what the machine does. It requires the ability to use computers both as a tool for working with data and as a context for developing and implementing algorithms. So in the first week, we'll get started with the question, what is data science? But we'll actually start more foundationally with the question, what is big data?